Welcome to EUPrivacyForAll, Session 8 on GDPR, Processors, Article 26. European Parliament led in Article 26 that controllers and processors shall notably be free to determine respective roles and tasks, return and delete external copies, adhere to code of conducts and certification mechanism, and allow on-site inspections. EU Council specified that prior specific or general written consent before enlisting any other subprocessor was necessary, and that the initial processor shall remain fully liable to the controller for the performance of that other processor's obligations. Those are some of the inputs from both European Parliament and EU Council. A key provision in GDPR is Article 26. In paragraph 1, it is stressed that where processing is to be carried out on behalf of a controller, the controller shall use only processors providing sufficient guarantees to implement appropriate technical and organizational measures. That is to say that controller has a full responsibility to pick up processors being able to meet their requirements. In 1A, it is laid down that the processor shall not enlist another processor without the prior specific or general written consent of the controller, as proposed by EU Council. Some additional provisions specify really clearly all the obligations of the processor. As you can notice on this screen, there are plenty of new obligations. Among those, let's outline the fact that the carrying out of processing by a processor shall be governed by contract or other legal act binding the processor to the controller. That documented instructions from the controller should be the only followed by the processor. That the processor should assist the controller by appropriate technical and organizational measures. That at the choice of the controller, processor shall delete or return all the personal data. Additionally, some provisions in the end of this article tackle standard contractual clauses by supervisory authority or by the Commission, the prejudice to an individual, the enlisting of other processors, adherence to code of conduct or certification mechanisms, and the fact that the contract or the other legal act shall be in writing. If a processor in breach of this regulation determines the purposes and means of data processing, then, finally, it should be considered being a controller. Other interesting provisions in the GDPR tackle additional obligations of the processor. The list is long, and you can find some examples on the screen. Currently, the Directive provides a definition of the processor being a natural or legal person, public authority, agency, or any other body which processes personal data on behalf of the controller. Article 16 on confidentiality of processing stresses the fact that a processor should only process data on instructions from the controller. Article 17 on security reminds that, as in GDPR, the controller shall choose a processor providing sufficient guarantees in respect of the technical security measures and organizational measures. that it shall use a contract or legal act to bind the processor? What should accountable data processors get prepared for? To document appropriate technical and organizational measures, to refrain from enlisting another processor without the prior specific or general written consent of the controller, to get a contract or other legal act ready to frame each processing activity, to become a controller itself when determining purposes and means for brand new processing, to document the instructions from the controller, including with regard to transfers of personal data, to share information and assist the controller, to review and update measures taken, technical and organizational ones, whenever it is necessary, to promote the adhesion to non-binding tools such as codes of conduct and certification, and of course many other obligations such as records of processing activities. As you can notice, obligations weighing on the processor's shoulder are really strengthened. This documentation of accountability will be framed by EDPB, and this will be a really interesting insight.